first, I'd like to bring out Dr. Sheila Patel, who is the medical director at the Chopra Center, and she integrates both modern medicine and Ayurvedic or ancient Indian medical practices together. So let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Patel. Sit next to me over here. And then for our last person on this panel, please give a warm welcome to Dr. Lilly Padilla. Now, Dr. Padilla is a holistic chef. She's a certified integrative nutrition expert, and she also is a cancer survivor. And it's through this journey that she applied how she saved herself and how now she's dedicated her life to saving others. So welcome so much. If you wouldn't mind sitting next to Marilu. Okay, so Dr. Padilla, let us, Dr. Patel, I'm sorry. I'm getting my P's mixed up. Okay, if you would please try and put into a global view what is this idea of holistic medicine? That'll be really wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really the approach that we take at the Chopra Center. And with these terms, sometimes it's hard to understand what we mean when we say these things. So it's a good opportunity for that conversation. So from our perspective, from my perspective, and as you mentioned, everything we do at the Chopra Center is based on the foundational principles of Ayurveda, which is the traditional healing system that originated in India, but it's really just as applicable today as ever. And it's based on the laws of nature, so we can apply these laws anywhere in the universe and across time. And the foundation of that healing system, which really should be the foundation of all healing systems, is that we are, and we've alluded to that already, mind, body, spirit, all at the same time. And what does that mean? We have a body, that's the physical phenomenon, we're molecules and we have matter, and the whole body, as Fran mentioned, is a whole system. So everything in the body is connected to everything else. So we know what happens any place in the body affects everything else. There's constant communication going on. We have all these little internal thermostats that are monitoring what's going on everywhere in the body and making little adjustments. And we have to pay attention to the body. So a lot of what we will talk about and have talked about is the importance of nutrition, movement, exercise, supplements if needed, and also rest, sleep. So all of those things help the body to heal. But we also have to address the mind because that's connected to this whole system of the body. And so we spend a lot of time asking people about their emotional state. And I have my questions that I ask everyone who comes in, what creates the most stress in your life? Do you have some limiting beliefs that are keeping you from, moving forward? Sometimes they're thoughts, conditioned ways of thinking that we've had since we were children from some traumatic, experience perhaps. So you really have to get to that emotional part of the body as well. And then when that's balanced, then the body can balance. Often that's the root cause of someone's physical ailments. And then of course there's the spiritual realm, which sometimes people are a little unclear what that means, but again, it's really just that part of us that's bigger than the body, beyond our thoughts and our emotions. And it's the part we're connecting with when we have any sort of spiritual practice. We teach meditation as foundational spiritual practice. And that's really the best way to have a whole body, mind, spirit healing program, is to address all of those things. And I tell people when we're just addressing one or two of those, you do have some healing, but the most healing actually occurs when you're integrating all of them and addressing all of them. And so we try to expand on people's toolbox, so you have all the tools available to you for your healing, and then you get to choose which ones resonate with you, but all of them working together. And we've been doing studies at the Chopra Center along with some other researchers around the country on all of these individual practices, but what happens when you put them together. And what we find is more than 1 + 1 is 2. When you do 1 + 1, it can be 10, and that it's the same thing with food. Sometimes different foods synergize, so you actually get more benefit from eating a combination of different foods together. And it's the same with these practices when you're doing a little bit of meditation and yoga and moving your body, and you're doing all of those things together, there's just incredible transformation that happens. So
it's interesting that we almost have to relearn how to be more in balance and connected to the natural order of things. We've come so far from that in this electronic, supersonic, highly toxic, industrial revolutionized world that we live in. And I think it's time that we start connecting, because the imbalance is what's making the dis-ease. I just want to, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to mention that's really an important point, and one of, again, the other foundational principles in Ayurveda is that our natural state is health and happiness and wholeness and, energy. But there's really just two things that happen. Something gets in the way of that, and it can be environmental toxin, it can be an internal toxin, say a toxic thought, but something's getting in the way of us being in that natural state, or we're not bringing in the things that our body needs to heal itself, like proper nutrients or rest, or, again, I think in our modern society more than ever, we're just go, 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 we're doing, and thinking all the time, and we're spending very little time just being. And again, in a lot of the studies, what we show is the physiologic benefits of these practices is the body's going toward that self-regulation, self-healing, that homeostasis where the body knows where to be in balance. We're just, again, either interfering with that process or we're not giving the body what it needs.
I'd like to expand on that for a minute before we go over to Dr. Patel.
Padilla.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh my God.
Just Lilly, no doctor, just Lilly.
I'm sorry, Dr. Padilla. I just wanted to say that, Dr. Shiva Ayadore always, I thought, gave a very good metaphor for that concept of everything working together and, a closed system. He kind of compared us to your home air conditioning and heating unit, and we are the system that is constantly, you are the thermostat. You're always moderating. Are you too hot? Or are you too cold? Are you tired? Are you, is your immune system down? So you're basically the thermostat. But if you think of a home heating system, there's all kinds of disturbances that come from the outside. And suddenly you are cold because there's a big windstorm that showed up. And now all of a sudden the thermostat has to recognize that the house is no longer at 72 degrees, but it's at 68 degrees. So it has to understand that it has to kick something on to re-regulate it. Same with us. We're stressing, we have to have the mindfulness as the thermostat of our system, that's going to reduce and compromise elements of our body. So it's time to have some transport. In a home heating system, hot air is going to start to come in to warm up the house. In your own body, you have to figure that out. If, let's say, it's stress, then you have to amp up on things so that you can re-regulate to maintain proper balance, whatever that normal setting is for you. And the whole thing is in the structure of either your air conditioning system or your body. So you're the thermostat. You're always taking in outside disturbances that's going to offset your optimum normal level. And then you have to use the transport of something that you need. If you're cold all the time, you have to heat yourself up with hot foods that's going to warm up your belly and get your body warmer. If you're hot all the time, you're running on high octane, you're anxious, you get angry easily, you lack patience, you gotta cool it down. And you gotta start equating things like that and look at yourself as a thermostat of the structure of the body and the whole thing as a system. And if you look this up, you'll see that every single system, everything, operates on the input and the transfer and convergence and structure. Every single thing. If you start looking at your body that way, you'll be able to do the daily balancing act, just like your thermostat at home. Now, let me, so now Lilly Padilla is a wonderful person. She's a holistic chef. She's a cancer survivor. She's a certified integrative nutrition expert. And I'd like you, if you'd be so kind, to share your story of survival and how it transcended into this holistic approach.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. 14 years ago, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And
Ovarian cancer.
Ovarian, yeah. The diagnosis was not that great. Actually, it was really bad. So I knew I couldn't have children, but I was very curious why I was the only one in my family to get cancer. Everybody in my family was healthy. So I started asking my sister, that is a nurse anesthesiologist, let me read, let me understand what's happening to me. And that curiosity was the first point of becoming what's nowadays my profession. Why? Because I read so much about, I went back to the books and I went back to school. This is my second career. So I needed it to understand how the world works, nature, and how my body works to actually bring it back into balance. And I did. I did it with just food. Just like what you were saying, I used, when I was hot or when I was bleeding, I used cooling foods and I used different things that will heal my body. But I was just testing the waters. I was learning Ayurveda and I was learning nutritional Chinese therapy. And I realized, I kept it locked, and then I realized, oh, this is working. I was calling my sister that is a nurse, and she was like, I don't know about that. I was like, okay, let me show you. So she was looking at the logs, and she was like, oh my God, these foods really work. So we actually became, that's the beginning of my book. That's when I started reading my book. If you read my book, you will understand how the body works with food. It's very interesting how nutritional Chinese therapy and Ayurveda, they both very ancient, they say the same thing. Actually, it's the same thing. So I really practiced both, and I just started healing. Even though the doctors, a few months before, they were telling me that I might have only 2 years of life, and that probably the recurrence will be if I don't take one of those pills for estrogen, whatever. Then I said, thank you, no more. I don't want any more medicine. I don't want anything more therapies. I just want to heal with food because this is working. And they were like, okay, good luck. But when I came back, every 3 months, my numbers were perfect. And I knew that will be normal. And then my immune system started picking up. But this is the curious thing. I noticed that every time I ate my ancient foods, meaning the foods that I ate when I was raised, as a child, my body reacted really good. But it was not just my body, it was my microbes. And that's when I started learning about the microbiome. So the microbiome has been in studies for many, many years. But before that, actually, doctors didn't notice that the microbes will actually help the foods to be absorbed. So the center of good nutrition in Chinese nutritional therapy and Ayurveda, they say that is the digestion, the center of life. And this is where the essence of life is absorbed. So every time I was eating, I was being very careful to absorb the foods in the right way and put in fermented foods. I started having probiotics later on, but really I brought back my microbes that I was losing because without knowing chemotherapy and other treatments, they destroy the microbiome or part of the microbiome diversity. So I brought back my diversity, and all of the microbes started helping my digestion, and I flourished back into health. So that was the beginning of it.
That's wonderful. That's so great. See how there are all these other options, and everything old is new again, and we mustn't forget what, the ancient wise ones, the Siddhars of India, were considered the wise, all-knowing ones. And the, system science, systems engineering that, you know, we think modern science and engineering has developed today is actually identical to what the siddhas
That's exactly that. A few weeks ago, I was at Harvard Symposium, and I was laughing literally because they were saying they brought scientists from different parts of the world. So we were in a symposium, and these scientists from France, Germany, Israel, you know, here from America as well, from Yale University, they were all saying that the #1 thing for helping the microbiome is food. But certain type of foods, right? And it's literally wholesome, organic foods that carry a lot of fiber. There are specific fibers for different type of people because there are different organisms. So if your the microbiomes are like light or they don't have the diversity, certain people won't digest well certain foods, but that's the main thing. But they all said the same thing, that the gut is, that they have actually come to the conclusion that the gut is the #1 organ to actually heal the person or to actually help the microbiome and help the body. Why? Because we have 10 times more microbial cells than human cells. Literally, we are a microbial body. So my body is not just my body, it's the body of all the organisms that I host. And by hosting different organisms and the diversity of organisms, then I can actually have control if I feed them well. And that's what I do. My expertise is in feeding well the microbiome so the microbiome will help the body to heal.
Exactly.
And that's what they were saying.
We must never forget that we could not exist were it not for all the tiny little microorganisms that are living within us.
Yes.
We couldn't do it on our own. Many, many more microorganisms are living within us than the amount of cells that make up the human body. So always remember to keep that fortified, to understand that, and to always replenish it, because if you don't have a healthy gut, if you don't have a good, I take probiotics, I eat enzymes with my food because that helps chew it up so I don't have to release so much acid, because that's what starts to cause the acid reflux. Cancer loves acid. Cancer hates alkaline. So when the doctor, you know, talks about food that's been fermented food is very high in alkaline. That's why we see people talking about apple cider vinegar. That's why, you know, and even things like we don't in the Western world really think about the order of eating foods. Kids are eating, you know, sushi. I didn't eat sushi when I was 5 and 6 years old, but they are, and yet we don't really have an idea of the order of eating raw fish. There's a reason why there is that, you know, green wasabi on the plate. There's a reason why there is fermented ginger, and the way you eat it and the way you keep ingesting the wasabi and the ginger is very important to maintain the healthy gut in case there's any live bacteria in food that's not cooked. You must think about that as you're eating, while you're eating it. You know, we're almost done here, but I just want to refer back to Marilu and Michael, because first of all, when I first became friends with Marilu, she was taking her hereditary inclination for, you know, rheumatoid arthritis and turning it around, because both her parents suffered from that, right?
My father died of a heart attack. My mom died of rheumatoid arthritis.
Never mind.
No.
Okay. No.
But it was the genetic hand I'd been dealt, you know?
Right. So
both
it
those
was through
diseases.
food that you decided this is not going to happen to me, because that's a form of inflammation.
Yeah, of course.
So the more you understand, well, what's causing inflammation? What's triggering this? What's turning on or subduing my, genetic disposition is very important. So could you speak to that very quickly?
Well, my mother, before she died, I was living in New York already as an actress, and I had gone home to see her like 2 years before she died, and she was on what she called her arthritis diet. And it was the first time I ever made the connection between food and health. And she seemed to be doing really well, but she didn't keep it up. But after she passed away, I thought, and she was only on it for like 6 weeks, and I happened to catch her at that time. But after she died, I thought, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with food, because let me go to that arthritis diet, wherever she found it. And the more I read about food, the more I realized that food is not only extremely healing and can target certain things, but that because your body is this whole being together, what's good for your body is good for your brain, is good for your teeth, is good for your mind. It's, it's all connected. And so starting with some of the foods like the nightshade family, which is very inflammatory, PPET, peppers, potatoes, eggplant, and tomatoes, has a strong imbalance of arginine to lysine, et cetera, et cetera.
Those are nightshade vegetables.
The nightshade vegetables are very inflammatory, and I started
potatoes,
there.
Peppers, and eggplant. She's the first one that ever said it to me.
Yeah, PPET is a good way to remember it. And it was just all these different things, and I felt like Helen Keller, like the Wawa connection. It was like all of these things were starting to make sense to me, and I had to make sense of my parents' deaths, and this is the only way I could do it. So in the process, I kept off all the weight that I had gained and lost and could swing my body. As an actress, we go up and down and up and down. I lost cumulatively from before 54 pounds. Dancing with Stars, 56 pounds. But it's like, so it was like, but it wasn't just about my weight. I said, I'm going to go after my health. This is where you have to go. And so when I introduced Michael to a lot of, plant-based diet and so many of the healing foods, it makes such a difference because your body is looking for balance, as everyone up here is talking about that, especially you, Fran. And it's like if you place all food on a number line, so you've got the really, like the salt and the meat and the heavy concentrated proteins on one side, and then you've got the extreme, sugar and alcohol. If centered food equals centered behavior. And you can study this. Macrobiotics is a great place. I'm sure Dr. Lilly's book and everything else. There's like so many things you can learn about food. Because, we think we're going to just take a pill and it's going to change so many things. But how much power is there in a plate of food that we eat 3 times a day? That's what we really are made of. So I started with food, as Fran said, and it made a tremendous difference in my life and in the lives of my brothers and sisters. We have now all 6 of us have outlived our parents. So that makes a big difference. Yeah, thank you. So,
the other thing, too, I just wanted to briefly mention in Ayurveda, there is this concept of personalized medicine as well. So there's different mind-body types. So many people out there may find that what works for one person isn't working for them. Mm-hmm. And I would encourage people also to look at that because that's our life experience.
And the different body types, doesn't that, in English terms kind of fall into, are you dominant in, transference, or dominant in convergence, or dominant in structure, and all of those dominations have their own characteristic, and the more you can familiarize yourself with them, the more you can say, I shouldn't really have all that spicy food because I already run hot. So things like that. This is all getting to know your body. Get to know your body, become really close with your body, and understand it. Well, I just want to thank our...
Poor little Michael didn't...
you just left me out.
No, and I was going to throw it to Michael, but they're kind of cutting me off. But I just want to say that when I asked him why does he think he had bladder cancer, it turns out that through his occupation, he had the occupational hazard of being persistently exposed to toxic chemicals. And when I see somebody who's working in janitorial and they're using these industrial strength cleaners or whatever it may be, I always say to them, you are in jeopardy of getting bladder cancer. So we're going to get into this more later. But all of these vital organs in our body, we have to take care of them. And all of this repurposed war chemicals that have been brought into and convinced us that we need them in civilian lives is wrong. and start steering clear from them. It's unsustainable, it's not serving us well, and the only one that it's helping are the chemical companies that are getting rich off of our lives, our backs, and our purses.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I just want to thank this panel. Thank you so much. It's been really illuminating. And
many of the products that we all use every day, again, shampoos, lotions, products for men, products for children, commonly contain chemicals that are linked to cancer, reproductive harm, asthma, allergies, hormone disruption, and other ways of impacting our bodies. So the beauty industry needs a makeover.